What is going on, everybody? I wanted to take another look at the Lamborghini Huracán LP 610-4 because, well, I honestly have not used this vehicle all that much because, well, we have another Lamborghini on the block known as a Superleggera that has basically taken over the street class with the lovely Porsche 911 GT. Now, I've been testing out some other street vehicles, which I did end up posting. Some of the underrated vehicles I did encounter in the street class, and one of my favorite ones I found so far is going to be the Lamborghini Huracán. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't say this car is going to be the best street car in the game now, but I would definitely say this car is worth using over some of the others. So I decided to take a closer look at the Lamborghini Huracán because I really did like this car a lot when I first started out on the Crew 2. This was actually the only car I really drove, at least until I discovered the Superleggera, but I wanted to go back to this vehicle to try it out because I know a lot of players are probably looking for other vehicles to use besides some of the quote-unquote meta vehicles, so I've been really taking closer looks at these cars. I'm not going to lie, I would say the Huracán is going to be a really good option for many of these races as well. Now, there's a few things I did find about this car that could definitely be some flaws, but also a lot of positives as well. So I figured I'd start out with the positives going with this vehicle because why actually start out with the negatives of something anyway? So the first thing I did notice with this vehicle is going to be this very high top speed. Now, we all know the Superleggera can hit about 262 miles an hour, which is honestly insane. That's going to be really high up there compared to many of the other street vehicles. Some can do like 230 if they're lucky. They struggle to get to 235, and well, on the longer races, that's definitely going to be a problem. The Huracán here can actually hit 258 miles an hour, sometimes 259 depending on the road you guys might be on there, which is honestly really impressive because I haven't driven this car all that much, but I have a feeling the Huracán's going to be an absolute weapon on many of the longer events here. Now, one thing I was noticing about it was the top speed and the acceleration of the Lamborghini is going to be really good. Now, is this car going to be better than the Superleggera or Porsche GT? To be honest, from what I have seen, I don't think it's going to take their place, but I do think this car can definitely hang with them in most of the events here because I've been testing it out in a lot of races, and I'm actually really impressed with how this car handles as well. Like, the Huracán feels planted. Now, obviously, this is an all-wheel drive vehicle similar to the Superleggera, but for some odd reason, I like how the Huracán feels planted to the ground more than the Superleggera overall. The Huracán is definitely a lot better than I initially thought it was going to be because I have been doing a good amount of races on the Crew 2 here with it, and I'm honestly really shocked with how good this vehicle is. Now, I would definitely say you could use the Huracán on like PvP, or even want to jump into the summit and actually try out a different vehicle besides the Superleggera. I'm sure that probably gets a little frustrating after a while seeing those vehicles on top of the leaderboards, but having other cars that can also keep up in some aspect is going to be awesome to see. I really do hope we do get to see like some type of variety in many of the summits. I'm sure many players would like to see that as well. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below with the quote-unquote meta vehicles. I'm sure you guys would like to see more vehicles used in summits and all that, which is kind of why I've been wanting to test out more vehicles in each class here to really see how they can compare to them. And well, the Huracán's definitely going to be a great option overall. Now, I have been noticing the Lamborghini seems to shine more on the longer events because, well, those races have more open areas where you can actually hit a higher top speed, and the Huracán really doesn't seem to struggle at all when getting to 250 plus miles an hour, which is always going to be a really good thing on any of the vehicles. Like, for example, the Infinity that I actually been using a lot on the summits is 238, so if you guys were to use that on one of the longer events, that car is going to fall behind pretty heavily by around 20 miles an hour, which will definitely help a lot with the time on that. But having something with a higher top speed is going to make the biggest difference on many of those longer events because you can obviously hit a higher top speed in those, and luckily the Huracán can reach the 258 plus miles an hour very easily. Similar to the Superleggera, then obviously the Porsche GT does like 250, so it is a little bit slower than the Huracán. But there's another thing I did want to talk about the Huracán that I did notice when driving it a bit, and that's going to be the way this car is handling on some of these shorter events, and or the power the car puts out when coming out of the turns and all that. So obviously I do run manual on every single vehicle in the game, and I basically always play on that unless it's like one of the 4-speed transmission vehicles, which I will make a separate video for those vehicles, by the way, guys, because my goodness, I get a little frustrated with those. But the Huracán, I did notice, can be kind of hard to drive compared to some of the others because, well, around a lot of the corners, like for example some of the races I was doing, I was noticing myself being in 3rd to 4th gear most of the time around the corners. When I would leave the car in 4th gear, I noticed the vehicle would struggle slightly trying to come out of it. I'd have to hit the nitrous, and even then coming out of the corner was kind of slow. So I ended up going back into 3rd gear with the vehicle, which was helping it a lot. So I do notice a lot of the vehicles are going to be different when it comes to like coming out of the corners as fast as you can. And well, the Huracán might unfortunately be a little bit slower than the Superleggera and the Porsche GT as well with that aspect. No matter what gear I was actually in with the vehicle, I did notice it was a little bit slower, but luckily you could shift through the gears faster and or hit your nitrous, which is going to help get your speed up pretty quickly, which I did notice the Huracan wasn't really having too many issues with that for the most part, but I do think it's going to have a problem when trying to be in the right gear if you guys are going around those turns in a specific way, because we're obviously trying to get the most speed out of that, and well, if you guys are in like 4th gear going into the turn, and you got to do like a tighter turn like that, you try to fly out of it, the car is going to struggle slightly, so I do recommend downshifting into 3rd. If you guys are running automatic, you'll probably be okay with this, but even then the car might have some issues flying out of the corners, but I would say the Huracan's probably going to be better than many of the other cars I have driven. But even with this car having that slight speed flaw with it when flying out of corners and all that, I really don't think it's going to affect this vehicle in a very negative way. I'm personally beating a lot of my times with this car doing a lot of the different street races, and I've been having a great time using it because, well, it's a different vehicle besides the other Lamborghini. Let me know what you guys think about this car in the comments below, and I highly recommend checking out the Lamborghini Huracan because, my goodness, I've been having a wonderful time driving a different car around. And being able to use different vehicles in these classes I really do think are going to help the variety a lot, especially in summits, because I know a lot of players are probably tired of seeing the same exact cars in the leaderboards, so trying out other vehicles like the Lamborghini Huracan is going to make this a lot more fun. But again guys, let me know what you think about this car in the comments below. Do you plan on trying this thing out more in the future? I definitely do want to know because I'm honestly really impressed with some of these street cars and or other vehicles in some of these classes. I will be doing another underrated street car video again, and I will also be covering many of the other classes. So definitely stay tuned for that as well, but thank you all so much for watching.